Okay, everybody. We got this beautiful pork roast on sale for 88 cents a pound. Now, I bought 2 massive ones. So, I've separated them, cut them in half. Took this one out the freezer yesterday because I wanted to can some up. Instead of a beef stew, we're going to do a little bit of a pork stew today. So, my canner holds 7 jars of the quarts. So, I have my 7-quart jars. Now, you would much prefer to have all wide mouth, but well, you got to use what you got, right? So, first thing we're going to do, cut your meat up until about 1/2-inch chunks or so. So, we're going to put in, I got about 2 or 3 pounds of pork here. I didn't measure it before, I didn't weigh it before I cut. So, we're going to fill this up with, just separate this evenly in 7 jars. Now, we trimmed most of the fat off because fat is truly not your friend whenever it comes to canning. So, though most of it has been cut off, just try to see what we can get here with these 7 jars. And this will be my first time canning with Tatler reusable lids. I have always just used regular canning lids. But, well, we had a huge lid shortage 2020, so I invested in some Tattlers. And haven't had to use them yet, but it is the first time, so. Now you could do this with anything, beef, stew, of course the pork stew, it's just fine. But it's likely to do it with any leftover Thanksgiving turkey, you know. Now, all of this requires a certain canning time. Well, it requires the same amount of canning time. So, everything that I'm putting in this stew can be canned for the same amount of time. So, therefore, I can put as much or as little of each ingredient as I want. Okay, some of them have a little bit more pork than others, but that will be okay. So, let me wash my hands real quick. I'll pause you while I do that. You know, never mind, I'll just wash my hands. Give me a moment. So now I'm going to add these potatoes in evenly between the 7 jars, as evenly as I can. It really doesn't matter. Like I said, every ingredient I am putting in here has to be pressure canned for the same amount of time. So therefore you can use as much or as little as you want to of every single ingredient. Say you have somebody in your family who cannot stand carrots. Leave them out of a few jars and they can have their stew without any carrots. Now, you don't want to put any kind of a thickening agent in here. If it does need to be thickened, which the potatoes do a pretty good job of thickening it up on its own, but if it does still need to be thickened, whenever you open the jar, you can make yourself a little slurry roux and thicken it up then. But you don't want to add any kind of thickening agent to your jars. They are unsafe to can. And you want this to be as safe as possible. I'm not sure how much of this y'all are getting to be able to see. This is only my second video. I'm not sure how my little setup is working. I guess we will figure it out when I'm editing. And I still haven't figured that out very well, so. Now you can really stuff these ingredients in here. They don't really need much room. Alright, so now I'm going to add some carrots. Get those in there. Now once I get everything in here, I'm going to try to leave about an inch headspace. But we will see how that works out. I still have plenty of ingredients to add in here. I'm going to grab a knife. These onions are a little big for my liking. Now once you add the water and you really get things smushed down in there, these jars hold a lot. You can feed one of my boys or me twice on one of these jars. So, in a perfect world, these would all be pints, but, well, that would never feed my family. Maybe me. I'm still finding it kind of awkward just talking to the camera when there's nobody in here. But I guess I'll get more used to that with time. Cooking is kind of like my comfort zone. Now, I've been doing a lot of planning lately and budgeting, and I want to make videos on that also. I'm still trying to find my groove on that. It's not really doing too great. I mean, I only did 1 month of it so far, and you know those pesky little subscriptions that pop up that you forget you subscribe to? You don't know when they're coming out in the month? Yeah, well, those have happened a good bit. So yesterday I did my best of trying to set up March, but adding in little bill pay slips for all of those little extras that keep popping up. And then, of course, bell pepper. Now, one thing you do not want to add to anything in jars is broccoli. It has the most awful smell and taste you will ever experience in your life. So if you have any recipes that you want to add broccoli to, just make sure that you can up anything and then add the broccoli after you open it. Like, I save all of my scraps and I do vegetable stock, like my onion peels and carrot ends and all of that. And I just do a vegetable stock whenever I get a bag full in my freezer. But your little broccoli pieces, you do not want to add. You're going to throw those away. Now, I know I said I wanted an inch of headspace, and it looks like I'm filling these jars up to the top. But once I add the water and I get these air bubbles out, it's really gonna be, you'd be surprised at how much these jars hold. Now once you get all of this done, I'm only doing 7 jars because, well, my can only holds 7. And it's like a very long process, the can. But I still enjoy it. So let me get me a teaspoon measuring spoon. Because I am doing a whole quart, it's 1 teaspoon of salt in each. Now you can add other seasonings at this point. I prefer to season after I open because seasonings really multiply a lot whenever they are canned. So what you think might be, you know, just a little bit of garlic powder or something along those lines could end up being equivalent to, I don't know, half the jar. So I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt. If I was doing pints, it would be a half a teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon of salt to every jar. And I'm gonna do this before I add the water, because whenever I add the water, it'll just kind of like push the salt down and kind of distribute it. That's just how I do it. And I'm using canning salt, but you don't have to use canning salt. You can use non-iodized salt. Iodized salt will discolor your ingredients, although with potatoes in here, it's going to be kind of discolored anyways, but that's just potatoes, you know, a little murky color. So, I can't find my debubbler, so I got me a wooden spoon today. You don't want to use any kind of metal in here. So I'm going to fill this up with water, and because all of my ingredients are cold, I'm using cold water. And then you can watch the bubbles pop up. And you want to make sure you get all of those air bubbles out, because if there's an air bubble around an ingredient and you pressure can it, the jar could sour in that one spot because it didn't properly get up to temperature, and that one thing could cause your whole jar to fail, and then all your hard work is down the drain. So as you see, it was filled up to the tip top. I debubbled, added my water, debubbled it, and now I have, right there's that line, 1 inch of headspace. As you can see, all the way to the tip top, even maybe a little over, barely. But once you get all them, oh, I didn't add water, huh? I do this a lot, I just don't ever film it. Yeah. But you don't want to use a metal utensil like I was saying earlier. I don't know where my thoughts went. Because it will scrape the inside of your jar and will cause bacteria to lie in that area. This one doesn't have as many air bubbles as the other, so therefore I may have to take some of my ingredients out, you know. Let's see what I can figure out here. I may have to pull a few things out. That's okay, that happens. Take out these few carrots. Okay, it's a little over an inch. Let me see. We'll come back to that one. Let me get the other ones done. I may need to add some of that to one of my other jars. Now, because these ingredients are cold, I'm using cold water. And I have my pot on the stove with about 2 inches of water in it. But I do not have it on. Therefore, I'm putting cold ingredients in a cold, clean jar. And I'm going to put them in a cold canner. Now, whenever I do things like, I can up turkey, like after the holidays, because you get turkeys like on sale, and you just boil them down, debone them, mix a beautiful broth, and I jar up all the meat. Now that is warm by the time I debone it, because I'm not deboning it, you know, when it's 300 degrees. So therefore, I use warm jars, warm turkey, warm broth, and I have my canner started so that it's warm whenever I put the jars in so that they don't shock and bust. Because you don't want to waste all of your food on glass whenever you've spent all day working on it. Now this, putting the process together, is really easy, and it's very quick because all these ingredients are going in raw. So therefore, the only prep is really cutting everything up. Once you cut everything up, you're good to go. Just stuff them in your jars. Everything's going to go in the can. Every one of these ingredients has the same amount of time to be pressure canned. Get all the bubbles out of there. 1 inch headspace, set that to the side. Now, you can fill this with water, like I'm doing. You can fill it with broth, chicken broth, beef broth, anything you've got canned up. Like I have turkey broth in the pantry, but the pork that's in here, along with the vegetables, is going to make a very delicious broth. So therefore, my other hard work broth that I have in my pantry, I'm going to save it for, you know, cooking. I try not to use my cans of broth whenever I'm canning something, because to me it's just kind of redundant to can something. Just turn around and open it up to can something else with it. Two more jars to go, and then we will clean the lids because, well, we'll clean the rims. Because we are using meat, we're going to use vinegar to clean the edges to ensure a good seal, and I need more water. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Let me get some more water. But in order to ensure a proper seal, fat is definitely not your friend whenever you're canning. I'm sure I've mentioned that once or twice before already. But you want to make sure that you clean any possible fat that would interrupt the seal. Because you don't want it to fail. Now, let me get some vinegar and I'll talk to you while I'm cleaning lids. Now, if I didn't have any meat in this, I would just use water. But because I have meat, I am using some vinegar to cut that grease off. Now, we have a winter storm brewing. I live in South Louisiana. Now, in South Louisiana, we are not very familiar with snow, ice, you know, things of that sort. So, they're expecting a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of ice tonight. And therefore, we may lose power. Now, if we lose power, I have a pantry full of stuff that would taste great hot, warmed up, or with other ingredients added to it. Seasonings cooked in more, you know, things of that sort. But I also have a lot of things that can just be eaten. Even though it would taste better, it's still food. So if I lose power for 2, 3, 4 days, I have enough food to feed my family of 4 for about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, and not worry about, okay, these title lids, and not worry about everything. So, like I said, I've never used these title lids. So, instructions say to put the gasket on. And of course, I have my 4 regulars. I have my 3 wides. Ah, my rings. I need to go get my rings. I forgot my rings. Let me go get that real quick. Get out of here. Okay. So I just keep my rings in a bag. And also keep my used lids in there. You're not, like, I don't reuse my lids. But to keep them to, you know, you open up something and say you destroy the lid of the jam or whatever, you can just grab a, you know, a used lid and just plop it on top. Use the ring, put it in your refrigerator. Not a big deal. Now, I will not use it to can with if they were used. So, the instructions say to just set. I hope these reusable lids work. I hear great things about them, but like I said, I've never used them. But I did not have enough of, you know, my normal canning lids in order to do the whole thing. So, try Untitled. Alright. Now, whenever you do this, you don't want it to be too tight. So, what I do is I take it, I screw it on, and then you just want it fingertip tight. Whenever the jar is spinning, it's tight enough. You don't want to over tighten, just fingertip tight. You don't want to put your wrist in it at all. That will cause your lids to buckle, and then you'll have a failed seal. Okay, the tablet lid's a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna go down a little bit tighter than just fingertip tight that I usually do, because it just feels different. But I'm not going down really tight. Like, I'm not getting my wrists involved in this at all. Now, I have all my rings mixed together, so now I gotta find some small rings here. Here we go. Now, your rings can be reused. Your rings can be reused. Well, 20 years until they just get so rusted up and not in good shape that they need to be thrown away. But you always have plenty of rings, because you do not store your jar with the rings on. Like I said, I'm still a little awkward talking to myself. It feels like I'm talking to myself. Now, because this is cold product going into a cold canner, I do not need to use my jar lifter to put them in, but out of habit, I never put a jar in or take a jar out without using the jar lifter, because the last thing I want to do is not be thinking one day and just grab it and it's hot. So, let me see. I started out with about 2 inches of water in. So this canner holds 7 jars. So there's my first jar. Oh wow, 27 minutes already. That's okay. Look at that. Doesn't it look so beautiful? God, that's beautiful. There we go, my 7 jars in the canner. So from here, I'm going to put my lid on. Sorry guys, kind of hard doing this one-handed. I have these wonderful arrows. You just put the arrow on the arrow, and then you pop it closed. Yeah, forgot one thing. Hold on one second. I always blow through this just to make sure that, steam can get through and that there is no clogs. Because if that's not working correctly, nothing's going to work correctly. Right, so we got it sealed on. This is loose. It can come up, it can go down, it's not stuck. That's important also. So from here, we're going to put So probably about 7-ish. And we want this to come to a boil, and it's gonna start venting. Whenever it vents, it's gonna start steaming, and you want it to vent for 10 minutes. Once it started venting for 10 minutes, I'm gonna add my weight, which I have the weight set on for my altitude, which is like literally like 26 feet. Like, I live in South Louisiana. I think it's either 14 feet or 26 feet out. I'd have to look, but I mean, it's under 1,000. So therefore, I only need, 10-pound weight, 10 pounds of pressure. And I'm gonna put that on top, and it's gonna start rattling for me. I'll bring you back whenever I show you. But it's gonna vent for 10 minutes, gonna put the weight on, and that's when we start our timer. Now we have quarts in there. So quarts are gonna have to cook for 90 minutes. That's an hour and a half. So I'll bring you back then. Well, I'll bring you back whenever, we start venting. And we vent it for 10 minutes. Okay, it has been 10 minutes, and we have been venting for 10 minutes. So I am going to put my weight on. And I'm already popped up, which should not quite be. Let me see. All right. So whenever it starts rattling, and trust me, you will hear it for the whole hour and a half that it is rattling, I will start my timer. And then, of course, we can for 90 minutes. So, after that, husband's taking over cooking because the kitchen will be closed because this chick will have had it. All right. Okay, I just started my timer for 90 minutes. It's rattling a little bit heavy for my liking. It only needs to rattle about 3 or 4 times a minute. And as you can see, we are well beyond that. Our pressure's up. We are rattling. I have my timer set. I am still at 7. I think I might go down to about 6.5. And I will see you back in an hour and a half and show you the beautiful jars I pull out. I really hope these pattern lids will work. Yeah, that's what I meant. All right.
How long do you gotta sit there?
Okay, my timer just went off, so I'm going to turn my fire off. And in about 15, 20 minutes or so, this will drop. And when that drops, then all the pressure has slowly released. And at that time, I will remove this. Then I'll give it about another 5 minutes or so, and then I'll take the lid off. And I will show you my beautiful jars whenever I get them out. God, I hope these cat lids work. Okay, so it's probably been about 45 minutes. Probably not helping that I am in the process of cooking right on the side of my canner. But I did just drop. So now a little bit of steam will release. Whenever I release this cap, it will be fine. So now I'm just going to release this. And I'm going to give it about 5 minutes or so before I release my lid. And yes, I'm caramelizing some onions for dinner tonight. Caramelized onions, potatoes in the oven, and, well, might be more whenever I come back and show you the finished product of this. All right, yeah, hubby had to go to the store, so even though I've been cleaning all day and I'm still cooking dinner. It's okay. He did some of the prep before he left. All right. Okay. My husband's videoing, so forgive us. We're both bringing you this. It's been 5 minutes since I removed the lid. So now I'm going to release and open away from me, because it will come billowing out. Set this to the side. Now, I would usually let this sit a little bit longer, but you know, for the sake of y'all, I'll pull one jar out and let y'all see it. So it was a little bit of siphoning, which can be expected. The jar will still be fine.
On the blue one. Put it on the blue one.
Oh. Yeah. I'll pull another one out. They do look beautiful though. And as you can see, I've lost a touch of headspace because there was a little bit of siphoning, but siphoning can be expected. So these need to sit undisturbed once I pull them all out. They need to sit undisturbed for 24 hours before you do anything with them. They need to cool down, come to temperature, and then I can see if they have sealed or not. If they've sealed, they go in the pantry. If they have not sealed, they go in the refrigerator. And my husband's smiling because he knows what that means. That means we're eating stew a little early. All right, well, still got a lot to do with dinner. So, oh, by the way, I know I mentioned earlier on one of my groups that I don't have a dishwasher. One of my YouTubers that I follow had a live today, and we were just talking about, you know, things you do to keep your home tidy. Well, I don't have a dishwasher, so what you do when you don't have a dishwasher is while you're cooking, you constantly wash dishes. Now, as you can see, I still have, you know, one or two things that need to be cleaned up, but you know, it is what it is. All right. Yeah, you can see a little bit of siphoning in the pot. That's fine. Whenever they all seal, they'll be delicious. All right.